So I've parked in the village of Falking at the foot of the South Downs, and that's where I'm heading up to, up there. Hi folks, so I'm here today on the South Downs in an area that I've not really been to before, called the Falking Escarpment, and I'm trying to knock out two birds with one stone really. Firstly, I'm scouting the area out for potential wild camping spots. The ability to travel away from your front door to exercise is just started this week, so this means that I can get to the Downs okay, which is only like 20 miles from my house. And wild camping starts again in about another 2 weeks. It's going to be a pretty busy period for wild campers, I think, in 2 weeks' time. So I'm going to hold off maybe another week or something like that. And I also thought I'd stay local rather than head for the honeypot areas, so I'm scanning this area out. And also I was on the Downs a few days ago doing a video on when you get lost using your map and compass, and on the way down from the hill that I was on, that was only like 500 feet high or so, I got a problem with my knee that's happens to me on and off over the last 20 years. So I'm going to try and test my knee out again. My name's John and I make videos on camping, astronomy and walking. If you like what you see in this video, then please check my channel out, as there may be others that interest you there. But in the meantime, let's crack on with today's video. That's an old lime kiln there. I think in this area of the Weald, lime burning was a major industry from medieval period onwards. Yeah, anyway, this knee thing then, it's called Illiotibial Band Friction Syndrome. And basically it's where the iliotibial band, which is a fibrous band that runs from the outside of your hip down to just below the knee on the outside, where it starts to rub against the side of your knee, and the whole area gets very inflamed and it becomes incredibly painful. And this mostly afflicts you going downhill. Usually I'll get it when I'm doing bigger downhills like the Lake District or something like that. I haven't had it for a few years. And the way I've got round it when I have had it in the past has been to walk downhill backwards. That completely solves the problem, but you look dead stupid. But it is so painful that it means you basically walk for a minute or so, have to stop for 5 minutes, walk for a minute or so. So going downhill backwards starts to become an attractive option. But anyway, it's caused by a muscular imbalance, and there's a small muscle in your bum towards the top that's essentially used to stabilize your knee. And if this isn't strong enough compared to your other muscles, then you get issues down at your knee end. Now, we've been in pretty well lockdown on and off for most of the last year, and this has meant that I haven't really done a huge amount of walking up and down hills. I've done quite a lot of walking in the local forests and that sort of thing, but I certainly haven't got up to the upland areas, apart from a brief foray to Skye last year. And so I haven't had much up and downhill type practice. On the other hand, I've done loads and loads of cycling. That's a major hobby of mine that I don't cover on this channel. And that, plus I haven't been at work, where I run up and down stairs non-stop all day long, has, I think, allowed this muscular imbalance to kick in again. So I've been doing some exercises that I found that isolate this particular muscle for the last week or so, and I'm here really just seeing whether they've made any difference or not. I'm not going to notice it plodding up the escarpment, but I certainly will know when I come down whether it's had any effect or not. So yeah, I'm here to test my knee out or see whether I'm going in the right direction, look for a wild camping spot, and also there's a Norman Motte and Bailey castle up here somewhere from immediately after 1066 invasion. So I'm going to see if I can find that and whether you're allowed access to it and stuff. So I shall bring you back a bit later. Well, it's pretty windy up here. It has been windy for the last few weeks really. So I've had to crack and put my wind jacket thing on. It's not waterproof, it's just windproof. But we're on the escarpment now. So let's get a little bit higher and see what views we can get. Howling gale up here again. So I think I'm virtually at the Motte and Bailey castle now, and when I get there and get out the wind, we'll have a proper little look at it, or what's left of it I should say. So yeah, this is it. What you can see here is some of the sort of mounds and ditches that would have existed, but there's not a lot left of it, as indeed I don't think there are for Motte and Bailey castles. You can see the South Downs Way trotting off into the distance over there. So the Motte and Bailey castles were introduced by the Normans immediately after the 1066 invasion and Battle of Hastings, and they were basically made up of two components. The motte, which was a huge pile of earth, almost like a cone of earth, and they were anywhere between sort of 10 and 25 metres tall, but the sort of angle of the cone was sufficiently steep such that it wasn't possible to run up it. And on top of this motte or cone of earth would have been a wooden keep, basically like a mini castle made out of wood. So that was the motte bit, and surrounding the motte was a bailey, which essentially was an enclosure, and it was in this enclosure that the sort of lord of the castle and the troops and any servants and that sort of thing would live. And the enclosure was surrounded by a palisade, again probably made out of wood. And the idea was that the size of the bailey or the enclosure, the limiting diameter would have been how far you could shoot an arrow from the top of the keep in case of attack. And the idea was that these sorts of castles were really quick to erect. They took about 2 weeks, I think, and would have enabled the Normans to kind of stamp their authority on the conquered Saxons below. It would have been quite imposing actually to see these things. Yeah, so, but there's obviously nothing left. What you've got, you can see around me here, basically just some defensive ditches, but you'd have to imagine this huge pile of earth behind me with a tower or a keep on top of it. I think if you were one of the conquered Saxons living in the fields below there, this would have been quite an imposing appearance on the skyline. We're not a million miles away from Hastings here, so I would imagine that the one here was built within a couple of weeks of the victory at the Battle of Hastings. The Normans would have been heading towards Winchester, which was a kind of administrative centre at the time. And you might just be able to make out over there the South Downs Way. That was a major kind of travelling route across the Downs heading towards Winchester at the time. So there's probably several of these dotted along the South Downs. I've got a fairly loaded up hill walking backpack here, not particularly because I need it for this walk, but I'm using it as a tester on my knees, because the heavier the load you carry in, the more likely you are to get this iliotibial band problem. And I've strapped my walking poles to it as well, because they actually make a big difference when you're going downhill. So we'll see how that pans out, but for now it's time for a spot of lunch. So I'm just going to follow this fence now, head over there and intersect the South Downs Way with a bit of luck. It's a little bit more sheltered on this, the South Downs Way. This is really, I'm on the southern side of the escarpment. So the wind today I think is coming from the north, which is about right, because it's going to get a lot colder tomorrow I think. But judging by the way the trees were bending, I suspect that the wind generally comes from the south, from this side, because the sea's just behind me. So yeah, I'm still on the lookout for wild camp spots, but ideally I want a little bit more shelter than there is today. But anyway, let's press on. Okay, I've got my poles out now, so I'm going to head off down the hill where the test for my knee really shows whether I've made any improvement or not. So I'm going to trot down the hill now, down the escarpment, back to the car, and I'll bring you back when I get back to the car. Well, that was good. Nice to get my normal walking boots out, put my winter ones away. They felt so much lighter, it's unbelievable. But anyway, that was a success. I got down okay. Didn't really have any problems with my knees, so that suggests that that's going in the right direction. So I'll crack on with the exercises. I've only been doing them for a week, so hopefully if I keep at it, I shall be good to go. I did about, I think I went up to just under 200 metres, so it's about 600 feet, and I'm sitting on 40 odd metres at the moment, so I probably did about 500 feet of descent without a problem today. So I've got a long way to go before I can do 3,000 feet of descent, but I think I'm going in the right direction. I want to go to the Brecon Beacons and do a little recce up there in about 6 weeks' time, so that'll be a couple of thousand feet of descent I would think, so that's my kind of target on that front. And then get up there and do a wild camp in June or July with a bit of luck. So yeah, so I'm pleased with that. Nice walk. Found a couple of potential wild camp spots today. The spots that I did find are on the north facing side of the escarpment, which today it was really windy, so and there was no shelter, so it would make a fairly interesting night out on that side. The southern facing side is where the South Downs Way runs, and there's nowhere really to hide there, so that's not probably a good place to go. But in general, judging by the way the trees are a bit deformed, the wind blows in from the south anyway, so I'm hoping that the north side is actually more sheltered, albeit not so today. So I'm probably going to come back and chance it anyway in a couple of weeks' time and see what happens. Yeah, and the Norman Castle was quite interesting. There's not much left of it, just ditches and ramparts and stuff. But it's interesting to kind of visualise what would have been there, and the fact that it would have been built only 2 weeks after the Battle of Hastings. So yeah, all in all a bit of a success. So I'm going to jump in the car and drive home now, and I shall see you next time. Cheerio.